When the Marks and Spencer's archive came to Leeds, as an ex-A-level teacher, I started thinking in terms of the sort of thing that might be found there in terms of language. One of the things that I teach in the university is language and gender. I also look at social linguistic topics generally. And so I'm interested in the way language use changes over time and how it positions different people in society. What I thought would be interesting to start with in the archive was use of the advertising and marketing materials. But it soon became clear that there was a vast amount of language data just really waiting to be tapped. Having started to approach local Leeds schools and ask them if they wanted to bring A-level groups into the archive, I then started actually looking at the data itself, sort of information that's given to staff when they start working for Marks and Spencer. And I took that over various points in time. So I have a comparative source of material over the last 100 years. And I started looking at the sort of things that students might decide they wanted to write about that. And they can see how, for example, in terms of gender, the presumptions that are made about the gender of the staff that are going to be employed. So having looked back on the employment records, I then extended that and started looking at the staff magazine. The staff magazine was produced by the staff and has been for decades now, produced by the staff for the staff. Notwithstanding the fact that the company itself becomes an audience. So suddenly there's layering going on as far as language interpretation is concerned. And then more recently, in fact as recently as last week, I brought in students, my undergraduate group, who are studying language and gender with me, and asked them if they wanted to look at the archive, particularly with a view to perhaps writing dissertation topics and having the data already there for them. So no collection of data, no transcription of data, nothing to do really apart from just source it and think about what they wanted to look at. I'm also hoping that in the fullness of time there will be MA students who will do dissertations in the archive, and there are already PhD students studying in the archive. There's one I know doing environmental issues and one doing work on textiles. And I'm hoping that there will also be some PhD material coming out of the archive that relates to language and gender in particular, and to language change over time. Are you choosing topics that you're actually going to have to go out and collect data?
Yeah.
Yeah, we both are, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So you're going to have things to transcribe and so on?
Yeah.
I'm doing transcriptions of voice recordings, and then Dan's doing questionnaires. And
Right, okay. Do you think that if you'd known about the archive?
Yes, it's great to have a resource where it's all there for you, and it's immediate. You've just got there and you can spend as much time on analysing the data rather than spending half your time collecting the data and then half your time analysing it. Because obviously then you have a lot more time to work on it, and so you come up with a better, not necessarily a better piece of work. But
I think it introduces a new topic as well. Like knowing the M&S archive is there, I didn't even think about M&S or specific commercial aspects of stores or anything like retail or anything like that. And knowing M&S is on the doorstep of Leeds kind of gives you that branch if you wanted to go down it.
The thing that I thought was interesting really about the language that's in the archive is that it's all a byproduct. None of it was intended to be, you know, all the stuff, all the advertising stuff that you're seeing about traditional roles of men and women.
It's worrying how kind of subconscious it is. Almost.
Exactly. It's not. They weren't trying to do anything. They weren't trying to get us a resource. It's just. It is just exactly.
It's like there was that one article about the 2 women managers and how M&S was trying to sort of say, look how progressive we are.
Yeah.
We have women managers, and just the fact that it was newsworthy in itself sort of showed how unusual that was, and how, you know, maybe they weren't as progressive as they were making out they were.
Yeah, and that's in the
that's not just M&S. That was just a cultural thing at the time.
But that's in the 1970s. I mean, that was actually as late. I know you think that's forever ago, but that's as late as recently as the 1970s. So that just shows you how much it's changed.
Yeah.